So today I am visiting Safe Engineering, owned by Nick Stewart, and I am here to see this little race car behind me. This is a Datsun 1200 that I purchased in late 2020, an old historic race car, an old SCCA C sedan that I bought out of Illinois and imported here to New Zealand. And it's basically a bit of a restoration project for me to do a bit of a historic racing in. Yeah, it's been a bit of a project. It's here with Nick getting some body work done, but yeah, basically this is a car that I wanted to show you all, and that I will run you through the restoration process as it happens, going from where the car is now through to when we finally hit the track with it. So just a little bit of background information on it. It was built as a Sports Car Club of America C sedan. That means for cars basically up to 1300 cc's. 1971-72 Datsun 1200. It was built by a pharmacist out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, called Ron Leonard. He and his brother David built the car, and they ran the car from 1975-76 right through to 1981, and they continually developed it until it was eventually one of the fastest C sedans in the United States. And in 1981, they took the car, all Ron qualified to compete at the SCCA runoffs at Road Atlanta. So to be able to get to that event meant he had to go through a whole qualifying process. Not everybody can just turn up and run at the runoffs. Yeah, he finished. You have to finish in the top four in your local SCCA region. He finished third. He took the car to the runoffs. From a field of 24, 25 cars, he qualified eighth, and he went on to finish fourth. So basically this was one of the fastest C sedans in the United States at the time in 1981. He sold the car to a fellow called Mike Eby, and he raced the car in 1982 and also qualified to compete at the runoffs, and he finished sixth in the 1982 runoffs. Went through various different owners, ended up with a guy called Brad Lewis, and he then also qualified to compete at the runoffs in, I think, 1999 and 2000 as well. And basically its career ended in about 2006. It had a fairly heavy shunt in the front left corner, and I'll show you some of the sort of the details of what's happened to it. And basically the work that Nick's been doing on it, so we can get it to the point where we can run the car through paint and eventually get it back on track. So come take a look. This is quite a neat old thing. Right, so here she is. So basically the car took about 6 months to arrive in New Zealand. I purchased it in late 2020 because of the global pandemic. What would normally take about 6 weeks ended up taking 6 months. So the car arrived around April, May 2021, and I was basically after a project that kind of required a little bit of cosmetic work and then get her onto the track. But this one here needed quite a lot more than that once I got it here and realised what I was in for. So we've brought it here to Nick Stewart at Safe Engineering, and he's been slowly working his way through the car. In fact, I originally brought it here just because the original floor pans were completely shot. They were all bent and buckled just from years of the car being jacked up and down and running over curbs and things. And also this passenger side rocker panel was bent as well. So he started off by straightening out the rocker panel. There turned out to be some rust in the rockers. He had to replace the floor pans altogether. So he's fabbed up completely new floor pans. And just coming under here, you can just about see this little ridge that just runs along here. That was all flattened up against the bodywork as well. So he's managed to pull that up back under again, and he's built some new braces for under the floor, and then it just kind of went from one job to the next. Like for example, the car has a Datsun H190 pickup truck rear end in it, which is quite a common swap for these race cars, and it's got Datsun 240Z alloy brake drums and it's got a Datsun 2000 Roadster alloy diff head, and they're much bigger than the standard 1200 gear. So a previous owner had basically just cut a big hole in the rear cross member and just left it as a hole. It had some tape over it when it arrived in New Zealand. So Nick's fabbed up this really nice cover and welded it in place, and it just looks like it could be an original piece from the 1970s. And that's the deal with this car. We really want to make it a bit of a time warp car. We're going to race it, but we want to make it a time warp car, so it kind of looks like it should do as the car originally raced in the 1970s and the early 1980s. Came with a A12 short block, and I've got a 5-speed gearbox for it. You can see here, the last time it raced back in 2006 had a fairly big shunt, and so the front left corner has all been replaced. So I think they're actually off two different cars. And there was some rust just on the top perch here. The radiator support panel wasn't quite long enough, and it didn't meet up, it didn't join the front lower valance. So Nick's built an extension down the bottom here. We've actually bought a replacement, a reproduction front valance, because it's way nicer than the mangled one that was on here. Going down towards the back, there's quite a lot of rust and damage in the corners here. We got a replacement rear quarter, just this little section here, and Nick has cut the old rusty bits out and put that new section in. It also had fiberglass covers over the rear quarter panel, and those had little screw-in caps going all the way through, so those have all been filled as well. So yeah, so we're getting there. One thing we're going to have to do is change the roll cage just ever so slightly. This roll cage was actually built by Mike Eby about 1981-82 when he first purchased the car, and for a cage that's 40 years old, it really does look amazing, and so it was really important to me that we keep the cage. But the only problem with it is these two rear bars here. New Zealand safety regulations say that those bars have to stop in front of the rear axle line, just for safety regulations, just for reasons of safety. Like if the car gets hit from behind, those bars can compromise the structure of the roll cage. So we're going to have to remove these two bars here, these two top bars, and just bring them down so they meet up with the rear wheel wells. But it'll pretty much look the same, and it'll actually strengthen the car up a little bit as well. So what I really like about the car is its originality. There's a lot of stuff that's still with it. A lot of these cars were really cut up in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s just to remain competitive. But this one is really super original, and there's a lot of the parts that are still on it that were put on it back in the 1970s when Ron Leonard was racing it and developing it. And that includes these flares. The flares came from Datsun's competition parts catalogue. You could basically buy any speed equipment part for pretty much any Datsun that was being sold in the USA at the time. And these flares are really cool things. You can see they're riveted in place. And this one here got a bit munched up during transportation from the USA. The wheels, these are the original American Racing Vector wheels that Ron purchased for the car around 1977 or so. Still got the original AccuSump that he fitted to the car. Some of the gauges are still with it. Oh, and if you look in the back here, just to come down for the top here. So basically when they put these flares on, they had to cut just the lip in the rear inner fender there. Try and get them a bit closer there. There we go. You can see where they basically just cut the rear inner fender and just bent the metal up just to get it out of the way of the tyre so that they could get the car down lower. And that's stuff that was all done in the 70s, and I really love that. And really, for me, it's just about preserving a piece of American racing history. And I actually managed to track down Ron Leonard. I gave him a call. He's still in Tennessee, and he and I have become good buddies, and he's been really instrumental in helping with the restoration of the car. These rear window straps, these alloy straps, these are compulsory under SCCA regulations. You've got to have these 2 straps on the back. You've got to have 3 little brackets on the top of the windshield and another 2 at the base of the windshield. And those are all original items that Ron and David built back in the 70s too. So so like I say, Ron has become instrumental in the car's restoration. He's been sending me photos and information and things. So stuff that you cannot replicate without getting good photos. You really need the person that was involved in actually building the car. Things like the dash layout and things. So I've got a dashboard for it. I've got an original, Ron ran all Sun gauges, so he had a Sun rev counter, plus all his gauges were Sun, so some of the gauges still survive. I've managed to track down an original Sun rev counter, so that will go into the car. So yeah, she's going to be a lot of fun, but obviously we have to go through a bit of pain before we can have a bit of fun with her. The next job will be to get the car on a chassis machine. Nick has found that the front left corner, which is the replacement clip, the front left corner is sitting about 10 mil lower than the right hand side, so it's going to need to go on a chassis machine and have that pulled back up again just so it's all nice and square, because you don't want to go doing all this work just to have the car go sideways down the track. So this is the roll cage here. This was another deal with New Zealand safety regulations. So this top bar here is actually quite high, especially for New Zealand race cars. This is part of the cage that Mike Eby built. Basically, I have to be able to get out of the car in 7 seconds or less. So if I can do that, and I can, then the top bar stays. So that's a really cool thing too. I love that. You can see how it's bent here. It actually comes into the door. So we had to get replacement doors because the doors that were on the car were basically just outer skins. And when Ron Leonard raced the car, it had full stock doors. So I had to get replacement doors. And we've had to basically cut a slot into the side of the door there just so that the bar can go through the side there. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. I'll provide updates and stuff on the car as it slowly comes together. But this is it for now. And like I say, next job is to get her on the chassis machine, then get a bit of sandblasting done in the engine bay underneath and in the front fenders. You can just see in here, just because the car's been sat around since it was crashed back in 2006. So it's just to help tidy it up and just to speed up the process of then getting it to paint. So that's it. So I'll be providing updates as they come along. So cool. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.